Hey, welcome to Talking with Tony. It is my pleasure to welcome back tonight, Talking with Tony, lead film critic Daniel Cummings, who's in Texas tonight. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us on Talking with Tony.
Thanks so much for having me. It's always super fun to talk movies with you.
It absolutely is. We're going to do some. We're going to run down some of the football picks also of the panel, and but we're going to talk movies. And Daniel, we're approaching that time where the so-called good movies will be coming out. They've got to get them in the theaters for a brief time between now and, of course, New Year's Eve to be able to be thought of or nominated for the Academy Awards. This is kind of you and I's favorite time of the year, especially from Thanksgiving till New Year's Eve. Anything? I know that there's a few out there that you already have your eyes on, but what are you most excited about? Which ones?
Yeah, there's several coming out, and I'm definitely counting more heavily on these movies than I usually am, because if you look at last year, October of last year, we had a lot more to work with in the first 10 months of the year than we have this year. In my opinion, there hasn't been a lot that I've been thrilled about, but over the next couple months, some that I'm super excited about. One that's been getting a ton of buzz that I was excited about even beforehand is The Brutalist with Adrian Brody and Guy Pearce. It looks like my cup of tea. They released a teaser yesterday for it. It's just a minute long, but it looks awesome. Just a historical epic. It looks great to me. And then on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, both A Complete Unknown about Bob Dylan is coming out, directed by James Mangold, and Nosferatu from Robert Eggers, a remake of the classic horror movie from the 30s, I think. That's going to be a day at the movies for me. I'm super excited about all three of those. Those are probably my three most anticipated for the rest of the year. But there are a handful of others that I'm excited about that are getting more buzz with the festivals that have been going on for the past couple of months. But those are the three that I'm probably most excited about.
The Dylan movie called The Complete Unknown. Do you see it as a potential one that would get Oscar nominations for either actor or for Best Picture? Is it capable of that?
I think it is. The only thing that gives me pause is I don't necessarily feel like the studio is setting it up for that success right now. I saw some early buzz about the test screenings that it didn't test very well, and they did some reshoots. So that has me worried because historically with these musical biopics, they can be a bit generic and they can feel like they came right off an assembly line. I think of something like Bohemian Rhapsody from 2018. I wasn't the biggest fan. I didn't feel like it gave me much more than a Wikipedia article about Freddie Mercury. I do think that it does set up the main actor, in this case, Timothée Chalamet, for a pretty strong shot at getting a nomination for Best Actor. And it looks like he really does embody Dylan in the movie. So I'm hoping it delivers, but I do have some concerns. But if it is actually a decent movie, it'll probably show up pretty strong.
I don't know if I should be embarrassed by this fact or proud of it, but I was looking back at all the movies that I've been to in 2024 to the theater. I've been to the theater 36 times, which is a lot, but it's probably not shocking to you because you try to go as many times as you can as well. You've had some time limitations yourself lately, and you're now getting back to it. But I got to be honest, and I've enjoyed 25% of them, maybe 20% have exceeded my expectations, which when a movie exceeds my expectations, I leave the theater really, really pleased. And I usually go in with very low standard, but I'm very frustrated at the whole lack of new material in Hollywood. We've talked about this before. You get to see Saw 8 or whatever, Part 6. I like for new material, new thought to be there. There hadn't been much of that. I will say, though, the one that I feel the best about getting nominated was not a movie I was particularly impressed with, but I wasn't impressed with the original either. But Dune Part 2 is going to get the nomination. I'm trying to think of anything else that I might have seen that could get there. I mean, I like the Bike Riders, but I don't think it makes the finish line ultimately. Fly Me to the Moon I enjoyed, but I don't believe it gets to the finish line. I really enjoyed Reagan, but that has no opportunity, with the current, how very well why. There's just Challengers was good. It was exceeded my expectations. One of the ones that exceeded my expectations. But none of those movies I feel like are going to get are going to make that cut. There's some fine films, but they won't get there when it's all said and done.
I agree. I think Fly Me to the Moon, a rom-com anything in that genre is never going to get touched by the Academy, it seems like, unless it takes a swing for some much bigger social commentary. And Bike Riders just didn't fit in the box, I don't think. It wasn't Goodfellas on motorcycles like they wanted it to be. So they're not going to give it that. And I do agree Dune Part 2 is going to show up really strong. And I'm excited about that. I know you aren't, but we'll see how the director pool is looking. But when they snubbed Denis Villeneuve the first time around, I don't think there's any way they do that a second time. I think for sure he'll be nominated for director. And right now, it's hard to see who can beat him with how incredible that film was directed.
Do you think we're done with the Mad Max movies?
I know that wasn't the plan, but given how Furiosa performed, I'm afraid that we are. And honestly, I would consider it quitting while they're ahead because I think we're in a really good place. Starting in the 80s until now, there hasn't been an extremely weak entry. I like every single Mad Max movie. And I think Furiosa gave us just enough, and I don't necessarily need more. That being said, if George Miller announces tomorrow he's got a new one coming out in a couple of years, I'll be the first one at the theater. I'm here to see what he makes.
Okay, well, help me understand what's going on with this Horizon saga, with the delays for the part two. Part one, I think it's fair to say that it bombed, although I'll be honest with you, I didn't leave there. I mean, I left there, a little underwhelmed for 3 hours, but I think part of that was you don't even see Kevin Costner to the 1 hour mark. And I don't know, what they really were doing in the first hour, but it did finish strong. It did not meet my expectations once again, but it finished strong. It finished enough to where I'd say, okay, I'll go back to the theater and see the second one. But I don't even know if I'm going to have that opportunity. Is it just going to go straight to streaming and not appear in the theaters?
I think that is the plan. And I honestly think, given that he planned to make 4 of these, and they're all probably going to be 150 minutes or more. Obviously, the first one was more. It sounds like what he wanted to make was a TV show, but for the big screen. And it's just a little bit weird to expect people to come back 4 separate times to watch a 3-hour film, especially when the first one is really just kind of easing you into the story. That's a lot. It's kind of like he's releasing novels, except asking people to pay $20 at the theater. It's exactly the kind of thing that interests me, but I think it's just way
I like
too
this novel, by the way, a lot, but go ahead.
just like that novel. But no, that being said, I don't think it's going to touch theaters personally. I think it's way too big of a liability. And it makes me sad because a Kevin Costner Western should do better than it did.
And a Western, I mean, that we had such hopes for. How often do I get to say these days that there's a Western that I have hopes for? Because I love classic Westerns. Now, I'm talking about I'm not talking about, and I'm an Eastwood fan, but I'm not talking about the spaghetti Westerns of like the good, bad, and the ugly. I'm talking about give me Shane, for example, or give me one of Jimmy Stewart's, iconic Westerns, not spaghetti Westerns. Just I need Westerns that are just you leave there, you can watch over and over again, even though you know what's going to happen. I mean, but and it was great acting, not just the storylines, but the great acting. And we just don't have that. John Wayne appeared in, he's such an iconic figure. A lot of people would want to watch, his movies over and over. But my favorite one was Rio Lobo. Searchers is pretty high too. It's a great film. Most people wouldn't say Rio Lobo, but I think we saw Wayne as a iconic Western actor, and we don't have those anymore in this day. That's just a thing from the past. So Costner with his Yellowstone and the success of that kind of elevated my expectations.
Right. You're right. There is kind of the death of the movie star who has their personal brand that they bring to film after film after film. There isn't anyone who just has a genre in their bag and they every year have a new movie in that genre. I don't know what it is, but there obviously will never be another John Wayne, and there won't be another Tom Ford who directed so many of his movies and did it phenomenally. But yeah, I saw a graph that had all the different genres of film and showed the trend over the years. And the 2 that have plummeted the most are war movies and Westerns. We just don't get them anymore.
Was there an outstanding war movie of the last couple of years that I'm not?
The last one that I remember liking a pretty good bit was 2020's The Outpost. It's I think it's on Netflix. It didn't get much attention at all. It's a true story based on the book. I think Red Platoon. It's definitely worthwhile. But the last truly great, in my opinion, war movie that I saw was Hacksaw Ridge in 2016.
Exall Ridge. Man, I have not thought about that in a while. Well, maybe one day. I mean, I was hoping that it was going to be this frontier thing. Give me the man who shot Liberty Valance. Give me Shane. Give me something like that. But apparently not. You feel like it's going to be three parts now, and these last two probably are looking at streaming. Is that what we can expect?
I definitely think it will be streaming, and I think he'll be very lucky to even get three parts. I don't see the original four movie plan happening. It was just such a, unless he's willing to foot the bill over and over again, but I don't think even he can afford that. These things are big and expensive.
Yes, they are. They are. You've had that. If you just tune in and talking with Tony, we usually do football picks this time of year. Pleased to have Daniel Cummings, though, our film expert, or lead film expert. I will go ahead and give you my picks. There aren't that many this week. I was perfect in college football last week, and then I was just absolutely awful in the NFL. I'm 20-18 against the spread this year, 4-4 with my 5 stars, and I'm 6-3 in soccer, which is separate than the 20-18. Here's my college football picks. I've got Southern Cal Friday night favored by 14 over Rutgers. I take Notre Dame to end Navy's run. Notre Dame minus 13.5 against Navy on Saturday, and one that Daniel will get a kick out of. Central Florida +1, and Gus Malzahn is the head coach with Central Florida against undefeated Brigham Young. So give me the Central Florida. In the NFL, I'll go with the Atlanta Falcons because I've been on them all year. They're -2 at Tampa Bay. I'll take the Las Vegas Raiders +9.5. That's a rivalry game against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I go with my favorite NFL team, the Dallas Cowboys, +5 against the San Francisco 49ers. I got two soccer plays for you. Bayern Munich was stomped today as we filmed this in the Champions League by Barcelona 4-1. This is the kicker. I have to have them win by 2 goals this weekend, but I'm going to go Bayern Munich -1.5 to rebound. And they've got a flight home tonight from Spain that is not going to be very pleasant. And then I like Brentford in the English Premier League, and they've got to win by 1 or more because they're -0.5 a goal. So Bayern Munich -1.5 and Brentford -0.5. Now back to more movie talk. Daniel, I count on you, and I miss going to movies where you used to do, some of that, get a bit of that. But I count on you for each year to give me something that's under the radar that's going to be really, really good and surprise me, where I can go out to the theater and feel that sense of like, wait, this did exceed my expectations. I'm pumped up for that. What can I look for coming out down the stretch that might do that?
Oh boy, I can give you a few that I've already seen, and I'll try to think in advance as well. But a couple that I've seen that I felt really flew under the radar. I recommended last time, The Promised Land. It's still my #1 of the year. If you haven't checked it out yet, definitely do. But a couple that I've seen recently, we spoke briefly about His Three Daughters on Netflix.
Netflix.
A really phenomenally acted movie. 3 great performances from the leads. It's a pretty star-studded cast, even with a really limited cast. It's great. It'll play with your emotions quite a bit. It's authentic. I loved it. And then there's one called Ghostlight, which is you can watch it on AMC Plus. And it's a movie about a family, a husband, wife, and their daughter. And they're actually a family in real life. And they are undergoing the fallout of a family tragedy. I won't spoil what it is exactly. And the dad he's blue collar construction worker who is not really coming to terms with what's happened very well, just trying to gut his way through it. And he finds himself coincidentally in a little kind of community acting club and has to kind of confront some of what he's going through while he's doing a rendition of Shakespeare's where did the name go? One of the most famous of all time. West Side Story was based on, what's it called? Romeo and Juliet. He's doing an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. Why couldn't I remember it? It's like one of the most famous things out there. But yeah, that was a really good and really emotional movie that is not getting much buzz at all. But I definitely recommended it. Very much exceeded my expectations. As far as what's still coming out, I would say the one that I'm most excited about that not many people are talking about is Small Things Like These. It's starring Cillian Murphy, so there's reason enough to be excited. But it's based on a book by Claire Keegan, who's a really, really great author. It's produced by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon's production company. It looks really great, so that's definitely one to look out for, as well as Conclave with Ray Fiennes, which I know you already know about. But I do think it's probably going to go a bit underappreciated because it's going to be a series of conversations, and there's not going to be any sequels, and so people won't show up for it.
What will do better, the Conclave movie or the Tom Hanks movie that's about to come out that may be called Here, but it may be something else also? Okay.
Directed by Zemeckis, right?
Yes.
They're teaming up after Forrest Gump. I think Conclave is going to do better. And the only reason I say that is because it seems like Here is not getting any kind of rollout whatsoever. And at least Conclave is making some headlines. It's getting a lot of buzz at these festivals. And I'm just not hearing anything about Here, even though I'm super excited about it. It's got a great filmmaker and some absolute stars who are headlining it. So I'm really excited about it, but I kind of think it's going to come and go, unfortunately.
We've reached the part of the program where we talk about Tom Hanks exclusively and share some of our favorite moments from some of his movies. And I think that people, I think this movie is going to hit home for a lot of people, though, because from what I can tell from the previews, basically when they returned later, this was our home. We lived here. I think that could speak to a lot of people who either deal with some form of Alzheimer's, some form of dementia, something. And I think that is, and certainly that has hit my family with a few people. So I think I think that's going to resonate with some viewers. So I hope it does build momentum, even though there doesn't seem to be too much there. I was talking with Jake, and we talk about Saving Private Ryan a good bit here on Talking with Tony through the years. And even though I've mentioned the scene about before, because I kind of had a deal with a girl at Starbucks about my book, and it reminded me of him with the Recruiting the Rose story, his wife and Apollo 13. Probably my favorite part of Apollo 13 was the guys are bickering back and forth and, just so upset and stuff. And they've got this deal going where they're the pool trying to predict what he does for a living and stuff like that. And at this point, Hanks has had enough. He says, what's the pool up to? How much is it up to? I'm a school teacher from, can't remember if it's Indiana or Pennsylvania or whatever. And he says, I don't care about Ryan. That's basically what he says. But if that gets me home to my wife, then that's my mission and all. And man, there's plenty of awesome scenes in that. That's the end, the whole earn it, deal that he tells, Matt Damon and all. But that really spoke to me there because it's at a point where, he's got a small group of guys there with him. They're not getting along. They've lost a couple of guys. They feel like they shouldn't have. And what a moment to come up with that deal about what he does for a living, his profession.
Right. And I think that probably puts in perspective what a lot of them had on their minds throughout the war. I mean, it's a microcosm, but it can probably be taken at large. Storm that beach? I don't really want to, but if that's what gets me home, I'll face down whatever I got to face down in order to get back home to the people I love. And I'm sure that's a mindset that a lot of people had. And he kind of brought them back down to earth. No, I'm not just some stoic officer who loves what he does. I don't love this at all, but this is what gets me back to what I love. And it's what's got to be done in between now and then. So let's get it done. That is a great moment. And you mentioned it already. The earn this line is one of the few times where a character can really be talking to the audience, even though he's having an interaction with another character, where it actually works. He's telling everyone in the audience, what you guys just witnessed actually happened. People went through this. Earn it. Don't take it for granted. It didn't come for free. It's so good.
Got to pivot. I am in Memphis, and there's been so many movies filmed in Memphis. Tara and I have gone out a couple of times to a diner here that was served as where Tom Cruise sat. We got to sit in the exact booth in the Firm, and it was kind of a neat thing because we'd watched the Firm right before we went there, and the house that Tom Cruise and Jeannie Triplehorn, who were married in the film, is, I don't know, a mile from where I am right now. So that's kind of cool. We go by there more than we should. All right, to be honest with you. Tuckahoo Drive is where that's at. It's just around the corner, right down the road here to the left. Also, we're about 2.5 miles away from his home in Castaway, and it where at the end he returns. He's able to get the green Jeep Cherokee that is his. Now, look, you and I and Jake, we're going to go out to where that the ending of that movie is. Okay, we're gonna have a little show there. But I said we had to do it when it was warmer. When it was cooler. It needs to get just a little bit cooler. High today here is 87 degrees today, which I'm not crazy about. But I wanted to bring that up about Castaway, about how close we are to his house. But I have to go to Apollo 13, something that I've shared with you before. Just a couple of scenes in Apollo 13. I love when the guy like throws everything down on the table in front of his guys and says the upstairs is giving us and we have to come through and we got to fit everything into this thing using nothing but that. Somebody in the background was like, I'll put the call. He looks at him and goes like, well, I hope you got a procedure, for this because it just looks insane. But then after it does work, he says something to him to the effect of, you, sir, are a steely-eyed missile man, which was something like NASA would say. Those lines and the line where Ed Harris corrects the guy because he's talking about, I think it's Xander Berkeley's talking about everything that could possibly go wrong with the mission and all. And then he looks at him, he says, well, pardon me, but I think this is going to be our finest hour and all. Apollo 13 is just loaded with just iconic moments that we can quote lines for, like a Seinfeld or Andy Griffith episode like we do today.
I agree, but it never feels like they're going for that. It just feels like something the characters would actually say in the moment. The writing is so good, but those lines have obviously stuck around for coming up on 30 years, which is very wild to think about, but that came out almost 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's insane. You're right. 1995, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I was living in Athens, Georgia. I saw that in Athens, Georgia. All right, I'm going to run down Danny's picks right now. He's 37-47. He's 3-5 with his 5 stars. He's got UNLV on Friday +3 against Boise State. And he's joins me with Southern California -14. Moving to Saturday, he takes Ohio State -25.5 at home against Nebraska. His 5 stars, Navy +13.5. He's got the Indiana Hoosiers with College Game Day coming there -6.5. Missouri +13.5 against Alabama. Brigham Young -1 against Central Florida. He's opposite of me there. He's got Miami, Florida -21 against their rival Florida State. He's got LSU +3 against the Texas A&M Aggies. In the NFL, he's opposite of me, goes Tampa Bay +2. He believes in the Buffalo Bills -3, and they are playing at Seattle. He goes with the Raiders with me +9.5 against the Chiefs. That's interesting. And he's opposite of me. He's got the 49ers -5 against the Cowboys. Those are Danny's picks. I have to have you on here, and I have to be fair. And we've talked Forrest Gump before when we've talked about Hanks. Any other movie that just jumps right out other than the ones we've just talked about that you really love? Because I think he and Denzel are the two best that I've seen in my time.
I agree, and he's one of the most prolific actors out there. He's done everything, and I think it might be recency bias to you, but you got to keep in mind, I didn't see Saving Private Ryan as early as you did, so I kind of saw that at the same time as I saw some of his other stuff. So one movie that is almost, I'm not going to say on par with Saving Private Ryan, but one performance of his that is definitely in my top 5 of his is Bridge of Spies from 2015. I really think that movie kind of faded into the past a little bit just a couple years after it came out because it was pretty quiet and it didn't go for the big Oscar moments. It just kind of let the story unfold. But I thought his subtlety was incredible in that movie. He just seemed like a normal person. And for a star that big to be able to just completely disappear into a character where you don't even think about Tom Hanks. You think about this lawyer who's in a real fix overseas in Berlin. Such an incredible performance, and I've loved that movie since the first time I saw it in 2015, and I've watched it several times since then, and it gets better every time for me.
Okay, well said. And I'll go back and I'll see it again. Here's the thing. Like my buddy Keith Donovan, author who has appeared on Talking with Tony several times, wrote a book with some of the main characters from that movie, from the movie Bridge of Spies. So some of that also I have to think about when I think about this, the whole deal that involving in that, and maybe that clouds my judgment a little bit on the movie. So now I need to be fair and I need to go back and watch that movie again. The thing is like I'm telling you is sometimes we struggle to find all that time to watch all these movies. Like I have had hoped to see His Three Daughters in the last couple of days, as well as The Woman of the Hour, and I didn't get around to doing either one of those, but I will in the next 2 days because I want to be able to talk about those with you one day. Let me run down Kevin's picks. He's 39 and 45, 2-6 with his 5 stars. He's got UNLV +3. He goes to Southern Cal -14. Ohio State -25.5, Navy +13.5, Indiana -6.5, Alabama -13.5, Brigham Young -1. His 5 stars, Miami of Florida -21. He's got the Texas A&M Aggies -3. He's against me also with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers +2. He's got the Buffalo Bills -3. Against me again with the Kansas City Chiefs -9.5. And just for, he's against me again in the NFL with the 49ers -5. John's 43 and 41, 1-7 and 5 stars. Boise State -3 on Friday, as well as Rutgers +14. He's got Ohio State -25.5, Navy +13.5. His 5 stars, Indiana minus. He goes to Missouri +13.5, Central Florida +1, Miami of Florida -21, LSU +3. His 4 NFLs are the Falcons -2, the Bills -3, the Chiefs -9.5, and the 49ers -5. Rounding out the panel, Stormy is 42 and 42. That's almost as good as John's 43 and 41, 3 and 5 with the 5 stars. UNLV +3. Southern Cal -14, Ohio State -25.5, Navy +13.5, Indiana -6.5, Alabama -13.5, Brigham Young -1. His 5 stars, Florida State +21. He's got LSU +3. His 4 NFL games: Atlanta Falcons -2, the Buffalo Bills -3, the Chiefs -9.5 in that rival game with the Raiders, and he goes to the San Francisco 49ers -5. And Jake will scroll all of these at the end of today's program. I need to go with a 5-star, and I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons -2 for what the heck. I'm going to give you a chance to do a pick. Your alma mater is Auburn University, as we can see in the background with the multiple diplomas there in the background. Playing at Kentucky. Kentucky favored, I think, by about 3 over Auburn. Can Auburn leave Lexington with a victory?
I hate to be on record saying this, but I don't think so at this point. I'm not sure we know how to win anymore. We know how to win 3 quarters, but I don't know if we know how to take it home at this point. We've got a problem. We got a quarterback problem. We might have a coaching problem. We've got some real issues to figure out, and it's not getting better year to year.
I think these guys are recruiting good players. I don't know if they're bringing them along as the potential there, like as they should. But my biggest concern is the decisions the coaches make during the game, and not adjusting, and the strategies and all, and just going for it on 4th and 4 from midfield in the first quarter against Cal, and then you never get any field position the rest of the game, and you lose so many winnable games. Cal, Oklahoma, definitely Missouri, which you led. Auburn, had lost 1 game all time, up 14 points or more, and like going to the 4th quarter. I mean, like it's it's rough.
I heard some of these plays were audibles called by the QB, and in my opinion, that's still a coaching issue. That should happen one time, and then never again. You shouldn't see the field again. And we are recruiting good players. We have at least 2 quarterbacks in the NFL right now. And Bo Nix, obviously, as soon as he left Auburn, pretty well tore it up. And so it was clearly not a him problem. It's an us problem. We got to figure it out.
You're so right about that. We'll pivot back to the movies, back to your specialty. Man, I'd love to have a Coke Icy with you tonight and go to a movie tonight. As far as what's playing out there at the theater right now, what do you want to see that's out there playing right now?
Oh, me and my wife both want to go see We Live in a Time with Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield.
Okay.
Just came out, I think, last weekend, and we both definitely want to go see that. I've actually waited to see it with her. I still want to see Alien Romulus. I'm a big fan of the first couple Alien movies, and I do want to check it out because I've heard it's decent. But week to week to week, I've been thinking I'm going to go see this one. And then I just hear the most abysmal reviews. And normally in years past, I would go see it anyways, but I'm trying to be a little smarter with my time this year. So when I see something like Joker Fully Ado get the reviews that it's been getting, I'm like, oh, wait, so it's a little more affordable. I won't waste my time.
If I wasn't with two close friends for the Joker, I would have walked out. I mean, it was just that bad. Okay. It was awful. I mean, it was like when I left there, and Jake was one of those two friends, and John Perkison was the other one who's on the member of the panel. I told them that's 2 hours of my life I can't get back. Okay.
They
It was
agree,
awful.
they agree with you?
Do I know?
They agree with you?
I believe they did. I mean, I'm looking over to Jake right now, and yeah, he's certainly absolutely does. But Beetlejuice was a little bit better than I expected it to be, and I'm not crazy about sequels and all because once again, I like to see like original things on the theater. So, and I got to tell you, I thought Speak No Evil was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I had hopes that it would be good, and it delivered. It went on just a little bit longer than I would have liked for it to. But I used it in 6 Weeks of Summer. It's where the ball players rented out the theater, and I thought that was cool. Now I've done that in the sequel that's to 6 Weeks of Summer called Fall and Recover that's coming out December 1st or December 2nd. Now I went with a Nicole Kidman movie that I do have some expectations for. What can you tell me about this? Because there's a lot of people that like to see Nicole Kidman, and I see a bunch of her because she does a little intro to AMC movies every time it plays, and I want to know how much money she gets for doing that. But this is a movie that I think it could be pretty good, actually.
I think it could be too. If we're talking about Baby Girl,
that's what we're talking about.
Starring the guy from Triangle of Sadness. I can't remember his name. He's a really, really talented actor, though.
Yeah,
young
not
guy.
Woody Harrelson, who was Triangle of Sadness. When he also in that?
Yeah, this guy's really young. I can't remember his name right now, but he's incredible. He's one of the best up and coming people right now.
Cheat and talk, and I'll try to look that up for you.
Okay,
that's bothering me because that was nominated for Best Picture for 2022. Harris Dickinson?
Harris Dickinson. Yep, He's killing it. He's a great actor, and he's getting a lot of work right now. But I've been hearing some really good early buzz from it. I've been hearing that it's a pretty wild and out there and unique movie that we're not getting a lot of anymore. And so I'm excited to see it for sure. Nicole Kidman is killing it. She doesn't seem to be aging one bit. Her acting is still phenomenal. Every time she's in a movie, I'm interested just because of her. She's incredible and very charismatic. I'm really interested to see her go head to head with this Dickinson guy. And I'm hearing good early buzz. So the preliminary critics who've seen it are saying good things about it. So hopefully it's actually all that.
Oh, is there an actress that and this you won't be able to show your wife this part, but is there an actress that you like to see in the movie theater just because you think she's like so attractive? I don't really go to the movies for that, but I am a Naomi Watts fan and I'm extremely attracted to her. I like the beautiful blondes like her and Emily Blunt, Charlize Theron. And I will sit there and because I do find her so appealing, I'll watch The Ring or Ring 2 or, whatever from Naomi Watts. And of course, she's aged over time. I mean, she's 50 something, years old. But like you're saying, Nicole's not. But is there somebody you like to see on the big screen? Because I think Grace Kelly is the most beautiful woman that ever walked the surface of the earth. And I will we did go see that anniversary, I think I told you about that of Rear Window, but I've seen all of Grace Kelly's stuff. And like when I told a friend, I'm talking like I was in college, I think, when I said, she's just the ultimate for me. And he said, yeah, I'm sure she's as equally as impressed with you as well, be sarcastically joking. But did you have that favorite actress like that I do?
If I was born a few decades earlier and maybe in the 80s and 90s was watching movies, Meg Ryan would have been it.
Wow.
As it stands right now, my earliest Hollywood crush is an actress who I don't think has been in very many good movies at all, but she was enough to get me watching pretty much anything she did back then. That's Alexandra Daddario. She was in Percy Jackson, and 10-year-old me just thought she was the most gorgeous human being I'd ever laid eyes on. But then I matured to Margot Robbie, pretty basic, but I think she's just gorgeous. But like you said, it doesn't really bring me to the theater necessarily. It doesn't hurt, but it doesn't get me into the theater necessarily.
I completely understand. pivot here. I've got about 3 minutes with you, and this is coming out. We're right coming up on Halloween. What about some horror movies that you really like, or either Halloween themed type movies that you have been extremely impressed with through the years?
This is one of my favorite times of the year for that very reason. In October, unless it's a new release, I pretty much exclusively watch horror movies. I love it. And so, as far as classics go, I just rewatched The Shining. I've always been a big fan since I saw it the first time. And I was pretty late to the game, but since I saw it 6 years ago or so, I've loved it. But probably my favorite horror movie of all time is Rosemary's Baby, directed by Roman Polanski, Mia Farrow. It's just an incredible movie. It gives me chills every time. The ending is one of the best and most horrifying endings I've ever seen. But as far as this year goes, there's a movie called Oddity that came out recently that I really enjoyed. It's actually pretty frightening. It scared me a pretty good bit, and it's really good. It's also on AMC Plus. Didn't get a huge release or anything. And then also Late Night with the Devil this year was pretty good. I liked Oddity a good deal more, but yeah. How about you?
I went and saw Late Night with the Devil at the theater, and I did not realize that it was basically just going to be during one talk show performance that whole movie would take place. And I agree. I want to say the same thing that I said a few minutes ago. I think it went about 15 or 20 minutes longer than it should have. If they would have cut it a little before then, I think it would have been a little more enjoyable for me. I guess I'm more of a traditionalist when I think about like the horror movies. I thought like Friday the 13th Part 4 was better than any of the other Friday the 13th, and Halloween 2 would be the Halloween. Here's a guy who doesn't like to go to the movies now to repeat things, and here I am bragging about Part 4 and Part 2. But I have seen I've seen a lot of bad horror movies lately in the theater, and I mean, really, when I think about it, I have no life to go to the movies as often as I do. But it's also I'm addicted to pretzels, and I'm addicted to Coke ices. Right, so one spot that you go, you pay about $20 to get both, and you sit there and you enjoy it. It's just kind of thing. You gave us a stat one time. Tell us about that stat. Got a little bit less than a minute about what we have to do our part to keep the movie business going.
Might be a little rusty, but it was something like everybody has to buy 3.3 tickets per year or something like that to make Hollywood sustainable as it currently is, and how much they're budgeting for each movie. And I feel like you and me are covering for about 100 people between us, and people just can't seem to handle the slack.
Yeah, folks, get out there and keep up with them. Daniel, as always, I really appreciate you doing this, and I always enjoy reminiscing with you over some movies and then talking current movies as well. And I'd like to have you back right after the new year, or either right before the new year, and we can speculate on what movies are going to be nominated then.
That sounds great. I always love being on and talking movies with you.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much. For Jake Barton, who's in Georgia, Daniel Cummings, who is in Texas, I'm Tony Jones in Memphis, Tennessee. We'll see you next time right here on Talking with Tony.